We'll be there for the president. Here's Chris.
Hello, I'm Chris Cuomo, and thank you for the company during these crazy days. Once again, it is time to get after it. I have some reporting for you and some food for thought, okay? Now, I didn't tell you this before. I didn't think it would become as relevant as it has. But after the assassination attempt on Trump, there was a lot of energy directed away from J.D. Vance as choice for VP and towards someone else. But first, please stop typing that I should not call what happened on that Saturday to Trump an assassination attempt. I have heard that too much from too many of you, and I reject it as a matter of fact and principle. And my suggestion to you is this. You don't have to watch me. If you don't like conspiracies, don't start one, okay? That's what happened on Saturday. It was an assassination attempt, okay? That's what it was, okay? It wasn't fake. It wasn't Biden. It wasn't Trump planning it. It wasn't multiple shooters. It wasn't just a shard of glass. Just like Biden isn't in hospice. He wasn't blackmailed to drop from the race and is detained somewhere. You saw him today. Someone died when Trump was shot at. Others were injured, including Trump. Now, you may notice I just layered the left and right conspiracy caca. You know why? Because the fringes are equal offenders on both sides. You can argue that the parties aren't equal offenders in the political game that I detest, but the fringes have been magnified minorities and they are destroying our dialogue, okay? We need to do what we can to get this campaign towards what is best for you and what Trump and Harris are for, not just against, that will make your country better. Now, most of you watching are like, yeah, I know. That's what I think. Of course, we agree, because you are mostly independents and sought out NewsNation to avoid a brainwash. So, after that attempt that Saturday on Trump's life, there was a good deal of advocacy for Governor Burgum as the choice within Trump land. Why? God forbid Trump has to step down and the VP actually has to step in. People are crazy. We had just lived it. And also, Trump is not exactly in his prime. So why would you pick a lick-spittle MAGA zealot with no experience instead of a seasoned leader? Now, of course, they went with Vance. Why? Because all Trump ultimately wanted to consider was how much the Veep would adore him. Now that choice is sus, as the kids say, because VP Harris makes this a different race. It is now a fight for independence again. And women of all stripes will be activated, not by Harris as a choice, but Harris's choice of policies to discuss. Vance does nothing to expand Trump's reach, which is why we now see a dicey move on the right. They did not think they would be this successful in planting the seeds that the Democrats wanted Biden out. And that story was started by them, not the Democrats, okay? Why? Because they wanted to weaken Biden, but they wanted to keep him. That's who they wanted to run against. Now they're worried about what they started, especially with the latest poll that gives us a new snapshot. And that's all it is. It's just a look at now. The significant distaste for Trump, the ABT vote, anyone but Trump, has given Harris a bump from where Biden was. Why? Because those voters were relieved of worries that their choice might not make it. Now, you tell me what you think, but that reasoning that I just offered up has a hole in it for me. Why is that the case? Harris didn't seem to provide those same voters any comfort as VP, meaning I'm worried about Biden, but she's there, so okay. So why do they feel better now with Harris at the top of the ticket? I mean, I guess you could argue that, well, at least there's less uncertainty, Biden and his illness, we don't have that issue now. Whatever the thinking, the numbers are what they are. And Harris is also not tarnished with allegations of being corrupt the way Biden was with the Hunter laptop and the Burisma and the money noise. So What she's doing is what Biden couldn't. She's painting herself as a prosecutor, which is not what Biden was known for being, who knows Trump's type, which is code, right, for a lying, cheating felon who was prosecuted a lot. Now, while there are still a lot of unknowns on the left for me, I don't know that Harris gets to just coast through the convention. They're getting a lot of pushback, even by, Harris-friendly coalitions. And then you got to see who she picks as VP. Will that choice complete the ticket to the satisfaction of enough of you? Yes, Governor Shapiro, Pennsylvania, Senator Kelly, Arizona, reportedly the main picks. I told you that last night. We're going to discuss them with a Veep expert. Literally, this guy studies VP choices and what works and what doesn't. Interesting, right? That's coming up. Here's my last point. I don't like the early indication from Trump land about what they're going to make this election about. Okay? They're clearly playing scared right now. And too often in politics, when you play scared, you play dirty. The internet is suddenly, but unsurprisingly, littered with two tropes. The first one, Harris's personal life. Portrait of a particular kind of ugly, obnoxious female stereotype. All the mentions of her love life and such, and how she was elevated. Dirty pool, especially when most of the people launching these attacks back Trump, perhaps the most sullied personal reputation we have ever seen atop a ticket, let alone the ticket from the former Character Counts party. The second attack, even more dicey. Harris is the personification of DEI. Trump is saying it by saying she's the most left. His followers are more direct in saying it as that's the only reason she got the Veep job and this chance at the top of the ticket. And yes, I do think that there's a little bit of a dog whistle in there for some doing this. Not all, but some. Look, many believe, I'll be more transparent. I believe, okay, you don't get President Trump in 2016 if you didn't have President Obama before him. To me, it was no coincidence that someone playing to white fright populism struck a chord after the first black president, okay? And that is why, now this is interesting, you're hearing more and more black men saying, be careful how you frame attacks on Harris, or you will undo all your work of trying to convince minorities like me, as a black man, that you aren't as bad as I suspect you are. And also, the DEI, it's a dicey move, because most of what we recognize as diversity, equity, and inclusion is totally consistent with historical American values of equality. Now, can it go too far? Yes. Has it gone too far? Arguably. Has it created unfairness instead of fixing it? Arguably. Make that case. Don't just say that all of it has to be terrible just because people like me sometimes swim against girls. If this election stays that Harris is a prosecutor and Trump is a criminal on their side, and on the other side, that Trump is saving you from DEI and Harris is DEI, here's what we know for sure right now. You lose. So let's get after this state of play with a member of Congress who supports Trump and is being raked online for his comments about Harris being, it's taken as nothing but a choice of color. Now, the man I've gotten to know is no bigot, and I believe he deserves an explanation. So I have him here to do just that. Here, we talk to people, not just about them. Republican Congressman Tim Burchett is with us right now.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on. I was having Cuomo withdrawals. I haven't been on your show lately.
Oh, well, you are always welcome, Congressman, and thank you for taking the opportunity tonight. What do you mean? What do you want people to take from you attaching Harris to being a choice that reflects DEI?
Well, let me give you the situation. We just walked out of the Secret Service meeting, and the Secret Service director would not answer our questions. It was a complete, total disaster on her part, and obviously she resigned today. She should have been fired. There's a lot of questions that remain to be answered. And I'm glad you said the conspiracy thing, because, let's just get to the bottom of it. That's why I wanted to have the committee meeting the previous Monday, the Monday right after the Saturday shooting, because you just give it enough time and the government does what government does, and they say, well, wait a minute, we're not going to tell you that, which is what she did. That feeds the conspiracy fire. I walked out, CNN right there with the mic. I was hot, and they said, "Do you think Kamala Harris is a DEI hire?" And I said, "Well, the President of the United States said she was. If you go back and read his statements, he completely says that in a statement. I don't have it in front of me, or I guess I should. You can go on the internet and find it. But he says
he did.
DEI. He did. And then I left it at that. And it had nothing to do. And they said, "Well, do you think it's discriminatory?" And I just said, "Well, look, it discriminates against all those other people if you said, I'm just going to take somebody from this segment of society." And I've always said, my saying is, put the best players in, coach. And we're clearly not doing that, because if the lady who was running the Secret Service was the best player we've got a real problem. And if you look at Kamala Harris's record, I don't know about the prosecutor stuff. I wasn't in California. I'd never been to California, to be honest with you. But the reality is she's been a failure as the borders are. 14 million illegals have come over. You can just read the papers every night. Somebody's murdered, somebody's raped, right. and it's happened because of that. She hasn't even been to the border, and she's the border czar. She has failed.
Listen, Congressman,
at that.
Fair criticism, and demonstrably true. She hasn't been there. She should have gone. We never heard about what she had assessed of that situation, let alone planned to do about it. All fair. That's why I don't think you needed to bring in the DEI about her or about Cheadle. And good on you for pressuring her enough to resign. And yes, Biden and I think Harris should have taken the opportunity to push her out. You're allowing yourself to be painted with the nasty brush because you're bringing up DEI.
I was asked by the CNN reporter that did I think that the vice president, it was just out of the blue. He said, "Do you think the vice president was a DEI hire?" And I haven't watched the interview, but my thought process was this: the president of the United States had said that. He had said exactly who he wanted to hire. And he said he was getting pressure from a certain group in the Democrat Party to do just that. And then he brought in Kamala Harris, who had called him awful things during the debate, if you remember.
No question.
I mean, it was.
Just to be clear,
even I thought they, it didn't need to be in that arena, because it just gets dirtier and dirtier, and it just calluses everything. And then that's who he picked.
I agree.
And you got to ask yourself, is that why did he pick that particular person?
But that's my question. That's my question to you.
Was she the best person in the whole country? I can go through Congress and go.
That's not who gets picked. That's not who always gets picked, though, Tim. It's not always the best person. You think J.D. Vance was the best person? He doesn't look like it right now. Nate Burgum would have looked like a better choice right now to a lot of people, based on what you're going to have to do in this election to win. But, you size up J.D. Vance's background and Harris, you got to pick Harris 10 times out of 10 in terms of their backgrounds, their experience. So it's not like she was unqualified, right?
Well, no, I mean you talk about
two things can be true.
JD's mama was a drug addict. He had to live with his grandmother. He joined the United States Marine Corps. He fought for his country. He went to an Ivy League school. I don't particularly care for Ivy League schools, but that's okay. He went there and he graduated with honors. He started a business. He was very successfy. He opposed Trump. I mean, he said awful things about Trump. And then
until it suited him to start doing this.
And then he turned around.
He got the job.
It around. But you saw a lot of people on the stage at the convention that did that, and that told me that it was a big tent. I mean, it might have showed you that they were kissing up to Trump, but to me it just showed it as a big tent, and they came around to his line of thinking. So, and
I think it's because if you don't come around, you lose, Tim. If you don't come to him, you lose. And J.D. Vance won that three-way race for one reason. Trump picked him. But I want to do one more thing, then I'm going to let you go.
Sure.
And thank you very much for being here. You're always welcome. I want to put up a list of things that I think you would agree with, okay, as general propositions, all right? And I want people to see this and understand it. Put up the graphic. You can see what's on the screen in front of you, right? You don't have any problem with protecting voting rights. That's why you want people to use IDs. You want to make sure everybody gets fair representation. You want to make sure that education reflects the totality of American experience, and that being of a race or of a certain amount of money doesn't determine whether you get good education, right?
I agree.
The next one.
But I would tell you this. I mean, if you're gonna change scores because of where somebody was brought up, if you curve the scores,
but that's not fair. That's not fair. You just got to give them an equal ability to score well. Ensuring equitable access to health care. Again, doesn't matter your race or your place or your bank account, you should get health care. Criminals should be prosecuted, but you want to make sure people don't get prosecuted just because of their wealth or their race. Supporting policies that encourage that people get paid the same for the same job, no matter their race, and fair hiring practices. You agree with all of that. And that is what ChatGPT told me is DEI. So it's about how you institute it and what the policies do. It's not that you're against the values.
Well, I would say it's how you interpret those things, Chris, because from what I've seen, you know, I see this all the time. And where I grew up, I would see folks that were always picked to be on the committee, were always picked to be, and you would have folks that were just as educated and from the same community, the same race, and they were never picked, but they were connected. And I saw that time and time again. And I mean, it's beautiful to put that on paper, but you're from a big city. You probably saw it just the same. And it's just as unfair. It's just as unfair. And there's never any share in the wealth. It's always somebody that's connected. And it really had, and it was the same folks that would get the same in the same families that would get picked, and that is wrong.
Sure.
And you'd have folks
cronyism, nepotism.
Sure.
That's why we want things to be fair. And I think that you're in favor of fairness. It's just how you execute it. And I don't want people to think that you're against any of these values. It's just how it gets executed.
Yes.
So I appreciate you coming on, Congressman. People will say I'm defending you. I am defending you. I know who you are as a person. And
you're a class
Biden
act,
said it before you said it.
Let me tell my side. Thank you, brother. God bless you.
Of course.
I got a cold pizza downstairs I got to get to.
All right, knock it out. All right. Now I want to bring in somebody who absolutely is concerned about this line of attack on VP Harris. The question is, how effective is it going to be? Okay. Democratic representative from California, John Garamendi. Now, I've been talking to him. He has been serving the people in California in so many different capacities for so many years. I've interviewed him in so many different capacities. He has known Harris since 91. And he says she's the right choice, not just for VP, but at the top of the ticket. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thank you.
Always, Cuomo. Let me know. I'll be with you.
Thank you. So what is your concern about the right painting Harris as the personification of DEI?
You know, your previous guest, my colleague in Congress, really explained why the effort to reach out to every part of the American population and giving them a shot. He explained very, very clearly how the system has worked for those who are well connected. Very interesting that he used the existing problem that excludes people that are not connected from the opportunities to education, the opportunities to the military, and even the opportunities to be at the military academies, and certainly the opportunities to get jobs. And I thought it's very, very interesting, his own argument about those who are connected always getting ahead and those who are not getting left behind. That's precisely what DEI is about. We have a very, very diverse population. And it is, 52% of the American population are women. And you made a very good point about women not getting equal pay, opportunities at the job. Take a look at the board of directors of the major corporations where DEI has been applied to try to bring into those boards diverse views, including women. And in California, 50% of our population are non-white. And so you have to have a policy that provides the open door for all of these people. And equity, that argument is one of equal pay, equal work. And it goes way beyond that into equal opportunity to get in line and to get the advantages that this nation should provide to every individual. And the inclusion issue is critically important. Just take the military. I spend so much of my time as the former chairman of the Readiness Subcommittee. The population from which we need to draw the men and women are principally minority populations. And you take women and you take minorities. And if you do not have a program to reach out to those people, both at the academies, and the Republicans are trying to stifle and stop that opportunity, but also in the ranks, moving up through the ranks, both in the officer corps as well as in the non-officer corps. You have to do that. Otherwise, you're not going to have a viable military.
So, one more question. Are you concerned that it is a winning strategy against Harris to say, you know, if she wasn't black and female, she wouldn't have been the VP, and that's the only reason that they're giving her the nomination now?
Come to California, Tim. Come to California. Meet 40 million people stretched out across 800 miles. And you tell me how you would like to campaign in this. I've been in 4 statewide races, and I'm telling you, you do not win in California if you do not know and if you cannot connect. Kamala Harris ran for, first of all, in San Francisco, one of the most difficult political cities in this nation, where you have really a very, very complex. She ran and won as district attorney. She ran and won as attorney general twice. And then for the U.S. Senate, she is incredibly well prepared to campaign. Watch out, Trump. You're going to get your comeuppance. Indeed, you have a prosecutor running against a convicted felon.
John Garamendi, appreciate you making the case. Thank you for taking the opportunity. I'll speak to you again soon.
You got it. Thank you.
All right. We'll take a break, 4 minutes and 5 seconds. We can get people here from both sides to come on, one after the other. You know why? Because we give them a fair shot. That's why. We push back where we have to, but we let them go so you can decide. Let the Veep stakes begin. Whom should Kamala Harris pick to be her running mate? It turns out that there's a lot more philosophy and calculation to it than just picking someone from a swing state. The short list, the men on your screen, white men on your screen. Shapiro, Governor of Pennsylvania, right? You have the man in the middle is Governor Cooper from North Carolina. And of course, Senator Kelly from Arizona. Pros, cons, Geraldo, and an amazing guest with an amazing guest, the man who wrote the book on how to pick a running mate. Next. All, when I'm blowing kisses in the break and the squeeze back during the commercial, it's to my mom, not to you. All right? Take it easy. Now, let's let the Veep stakes begin. The Veep stakes. Do I care? Not that much. But I'll see if these two guys can convince me. Okay? Kamala Harris, it seems, has enough endorsements to keep people out of challenging her. Now, I don't know. There's not going to be enough energy in that party to create problems at the convention. I don't know yet. Okay? The idea that just the delegates, which are just the insiders deciding it, is going to piss a lot of people off. Her choice may matter more on this ticket because she's a woman, and it may be examined more in terms of balancing it. So who are the names? Put them up. Several names are up there. You got the governor of Pennsylvania, okay? You've got Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. The governor of Pennsylvania is, of course, Josh Shapiro, right? Kelly. He's the guy that I hear about most. Doesn't mean he's going to get it. But the pro is that the Democrats have no real chance in Arizona right now. He could change that. Former astronaut. We all remember the story of Representative Gabby Giffords. What a brave woman and what a brave man by her side. An amazing personal story there that will certainly keep him a little insulated from Trump. Trump will be so stupid to come at this guy personally with what he's shown everybody. Now, the con is he doesn't have executive experience, okay? He's served in the Senate and he's new. So what happens if he has to step in? Is he ready? Next, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Pennsylvania is a must-win for Democrats. He is really liked. 57% in this climate, in that state, which is a very bifurcated state, by the way. You know, you got the west part of it is like almost more like Kentucky than it is anything like Philadelphia. The con is, look, people aren't going to want to say this. You know how I have reported and analyzed and argued on behalf of what Israel has had done to them that created this war. But a black woman and a Jewish man, I wonder if America is ready for that. Then you have who they're calling a dark horse. I don't know. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. He has the most experience. He's never lost an election. North Carolina isn't a must-win for Democrats. It like never goes blue. I think Obama was the last time that it happened. So are there any other names? Does this matter? And if so, why? Great guests. First, we have, of course, the man, the NewsNation correspondent at large, really an anchor at large and wherever he wants to be, Geraldo Rivera. But then we have this guy who wrote a book called Do Running Mates Matter, Professor Christopher Devine. And he literally wrote the book on this stuff, and he decided to come on, so it's great. He had a co-author on it, but we got Devine. He wrote it with a guy named Kopko as well. Geraldo, it's great to have you, Professor. Very cool. Great to have your expertise. So, Geraldo, why am I wrong to not care more about who Harris's running mate is?
I think you should care because, it's almost like a marriage, and I don't, you can make jokes about that, but it's a partnership. It's 2 for 1. They have each other's back. They substitute for each other. They fill in. I definitely believe that the vice president, even though that person fades into a semi-obscurity, still they are the number one fan of the person with the big job. And I think that to balance her, you had the congressman with the ridiculous, stupid DEI comment about Kamala, and I think that you were extremely gracious in allowing him to state his case, to the extent he could damage control. But there's no doubt she's qualified, and every one of the candidates that you mentioned is qualified. Right. Mark Kelly, of course, American hero, astronaut, Navy veteran, a wonderful husband to Gabby Giffords, a gun control advocate, and Arizona's key. Arizona is one of those swing states. He's a wonderful man. I've met him. I think I've met him. He has a twin brother. I don't know. Maybe I met the twin brother. But
I can't wait for the conspiracies about that. Dusty and I were joking about him having the twin. They'll say it was the other one. It's not him. One pushback, though, on Burchett. Biden is the one who set up Harris for this criticism. He was the one who said, I'm picking a black woman. He should have never done that. He should have picked Harris and then said, here's why she's qualified and she's a black woman. He set her up for it. Professor, help me out with this. The traditional notion of you got to pick from someone from the swing state and this is how it matters. What actually matters and how did you analyze it to come to this conclusion?
So it was a great introduction. Thank you very much. And I do acknowledge my co-author, Kyle Kopko, helped me do all of this. So, Chris, to your question, do the running mates help in a swing state? Could you pick up a state by picking someone from that state? The evidence for that is very thin. It's something that seems true, and there's a long history of that. If we go back to, let's say, the 1800s, when local geography mattered more. Remember, politics is more nationalized these days, okay? So how many of you out there are going to be voting based on your identity coming from a certain state or a region? People generally just don't do that. They vote for a president. Now, the vice president matters, vice presidential candidate, because it tells you something about who that presidential candidate is. What's Kamala Harris's ideology, for that matter? What are her policy priorities? Does she have good judgment, or is she just going to make political decisions designed to win an election? That's the kind of thing we'll find out for this pick. So I do think it's very important.
Who do you like?
Who do I think would be the best pick? Out of the list that you have there, I think Mark Kelly could be a good one.
Anybody.
And Josh Shapiro.
Sorry. Well, what about, I heard that you picked Minnesota Governor Walz, who I think a lot of people are going to have never heard before. He's a very old school Democrat, like John Tester. He represented there from the Farmers Union Party. He was in the Congress, Geraldo, representing from the Farmers Party. So he's a different kind of Democrat, and Devine brought him up as a choice. What would he do?
He's really, I'd say, the most experienced out of the bunch. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I know Geraldo's saying he's not going to get it. But why do you think, Devine, that he might get it? Or why you pick him?
Right. Yeah, I don't think he's the most likely candidate, but he's someone who has a great depth of experience in Congress and in the state. And I think that's important. Notice most of these people that we're talking about, their experience is in the states. And that's great. That can be really important, especially if they've actually been executives. That can be critical for a VP to advise a president well. But they also have to have or should have, ideally, some experience knowing how the federal government works, dealing in foreign relations. Can someone who's only served as a governor be prepared to step in and advise the president on foreign policy, even take over as commander-in-chief just 6 months from now? It helps to have someone who's been in Washington, too.
True. Now, look, Geraldo, I think it's obvious, but we might as well say it. Yeah, it's not going to be two women, and she's picking from mostly white men for a reason, right?
Right. Race and gender really matters. But one other point about picking the vice president. This is the first big decision that the person in the top job makes. This tests their judgment, their discretion, their experience, their vetting skills, their own maturity. Are they willing to share the stage with someone maybe more charismatic or not? I think that to in any way think that this decision is not enormous just because history says it doesn't matter if you come from Minnesota or New York or North Carolina or et cetera. So I think that here's Kamala Harris, and that DEI stuff stinks. And by the way, for the record, I would never have been hired if my father wasn't a Puerto Rican Catholic. That's why I got hired for the program that accelerated me 54 years ago into this business when there were no Hispanics on the air in New York. I'm DEI all the way. But in terms of, the selection that she has to make now, he made J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance arguably was an ideological pick. He had a great book, Hillbilly Elegy, Yale Law School, and all the rest of it. And, a hardscrabble background, bootstraps and all the rest. That was I thought, pretty good decision by Donald Trump, even though some are second guessing it now. I think that if she were to pick someone like Mark Kelly, this hero, this person with whom we have all suffered, as Gabby, the Congresswoman, suffered from her brain trauma and a near-death experience at the hands of an assassin. There he was. And the fact that he prevailed in Arizona against all the trends were against the Democrat. All the trends were against the moderate. It was all going for the Kari Lakes of the Sunshine State. Or whatever they call Arizona, Grand Canyon State. Sorry, I went to college there, I should know. But I think that so if I can't have Mark Cuban, if I can't have George Clooney, if I can't have Chris Cuomo, I want Mark Kelly.
Well, you do not want Chris Cuomo. We got to be able to do better than that in this country, that's for sure. Geraldo, thank you very much. Professor Devine, as always, thank you very much. It's great to have expertise for someone who's actually examined this. Thank you very much. I love you, Geraldo. Let's take a break. We'll be back in 4.5 minutes. Up next, I have a great source for you. Okay, worked for President Barack Obama, helped out with Buttigieg's political efforts. This person, Amisha Cross, who's going to come on, you gotta get guests who are actually in the mix, okay? Not just people who are reporting on it, not people who used to do it and don't really know anybody anymore. What does she think about Obama's posture towards Harris? Where is he?
Really want to win, you go to Michelle Obama and you say, listen, democracy is on the table. You can save it. Did they ever try that? It's a clean slate. She would win in a landslide.
You think that's why President Obama hasn't endorsed? That was mega donor John Morgan last night. That interview is all over the place online. You should watch it. It's on my Instagram page. He knows, okay? He's one of the deep pockets that they come to for money. Nobody understands the process better than those guys. But my question remains today. Where's former President Obama? And why all this talk about Michelle Obama? How many times can she say no? And is that going to hurt Harris? Joining me now, former campaign advisor to Barack Obama, someone who understands and is wired at the deepest levels of the Democratic Party, Amisha Cross. Hello, Amisha.
Glad to be here.
What am I missing? Where's the big gun? Where's the big dog?
Well, I think there are a couple of things at play here. First and foremost, we have not seen that virtual roll call and count yet that the Democrats had employed. So I think there's a wait for that. The other thing is we also have not seen President Biden in front of the public give his conversation, have that speech about why he stepped aside, speak to a lot of people within the Democratic Party, many of whom had worked on that campaign for a while, who are quite frankly a little bit shocked, a little bit hurt, some more hurt than others. I think moving into finding out literally the day that all the rest of us did, based on a tweet that was sent out. So I think that there's a little bit of air given to the current president of the United States, who has just stepped back from this. Be mindful, this is just a couple of days ago that this happened. So I do think that there is a respect there for Joe Biden. We know that speech is going to happen tomorrow. He's been cleared of COVID and he can now go out and he's going to be having that conversation. So I think that for Barack Obama, we should be hearing shortly thereafter, or again, up to when that virtual roll call actually happens. I think that he's being procedural to a certain extent, but he's also giving respect to Joe Biden, who was his vice president.
I think he's overthinking it. Also, I hope that they don't do the virtual roll call. I mean, there are rumblings within that party that even Obama said, I think that the party leaders will come up with a process to pick the best person. That did not happen. I'm not saying that Harris isn't their best person, but there was no process. That's for sure. And I think a virtual roll call would really piss people off, wouldn't it?
Well, I think the process did play out. It just so happened to play out in a way where the Black community aligned pretty heavily with Win with Black Women, followed by Win with Black Men, raised millions of dollars in less than 48 hours. The state parties organized and they endorsed. We saw various people at the state level as well as at the national level also throw their endorsements behind her. And delegates are what matters here as well. Those delegates made their voices heard. So we saw that happen in state after state. That is the process. The Democratic process, the party has its own set of rules when it comes to something like this, and they followed it through.
Yes-ish, because they were supposed to have primaries because you want the voters, obviously, to be driving this, and now they can't. So this is more of an accommodation.
So the voters chose the delegates.
That's true.
So the delegates obviously have their choice. But the voters did choose the people who are making these choices now. So I do think that there was in that process. It's not like there is no voter identity here at all, because the voters went multiple times in various states across the country and chose the delegates who ultimately made this decision. And if we are to watch what's happening on the streets, there are people knocking on doors who are lining around Kamala Harris right now in communities across this country. And we've seen the fundraising totals. The overwhelming majority of those are from first-time donors. These are donors who are donating $10, $20, $30 in many cases to this campaign. That even makes it more of a big deal that she was able to amass millions of dollars in record time.
Last thing, if it were a white guy running, hearing that, we should have gotten Michelle Obama, lands a little different. But I think it's more injurious to Harris for people to keep flogging that Michelle Obama would be the real pick. She has no interest in this. Why do we keep hearing about her?
She has absolutely no interest in it. She has said that since her husband was in office. If she had interest in running for office, honestly, she could have ran before he did, even back in his time as Illinois senator. She has no interest in it at any level and has made that very clear. But the other thing is we're not hearing it from, and I am a member of the Democratic circles. I've worked in this for a long time. Democrats aren't saying that. Democrats love and respect Michelle Obama, want her on the campaign trail and support as a surrogate, as someone who can, increase fundraising capacity, as someone who can drive home a message. They are very clear on the fact she does not want to run. It is coming from the right. And honestly, I don't think it's coming from the right because they really want to see Michelle Obama run. I think it's coming from the right because they want an opportunity to tear Michelle Obama down. These are the same people and the same institutions when it comes to right-wing media that are the ones who, when she was standing by the side of her husband as first lady, were utilizing pictures of her in a light that made her appear like she was an ape. These are people who said that she was born a man. These are people who are literally out to attack a Black woman, and Michelle Obama would be their primary target. That is the only reason why they continue to bring it up.
I have no pushback on that. There is a lot of ugliness. You call it what it is. You did. Amisha Cross, thank you very much for the perspective and the inside scoop. Always appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. Now, when we come back, 10 days after a massive failure to protect former President Donald Trump, an assassin's bullet almost killed him, killed somebody else, injured others. The head of the Secret Service sucked at the hearing. She resigned today. Is that enough? And what questions need to be answered? Big Pro, next. Secret Service Director Kim Cheadle resigned. Okay. But what do we still need to know? And is there now less chance that we find out? Former special agent with the Secret Service, Paul Eklof, joins us. He worked with 3 presidents, including Trump. Good to have you back, brother. So the resignation, not a surprise. But what do we still need to know?
We still need to know a lot of details from the ground, and they are coming at us every minute. In the end, Director Cheadle needed to step aside, and it was the honorable thing to do to allow the men and women of the Secret Service still willing to lay down their lives for this nation's leaders to have confidence. I hope the Congress and the Secret Service works hard to find the permanent eventual replacement so America can regain faith in the Secret Service.
Well, they probably won't pick anybody because they'll be helping Biden if they put someone in place. They'd rather just use it to fuel the lack of transparency. But what are your 3 things that you want to know that will tell us the truth as opposed to fueling some stupid conspiracy?
I want to know what the post instructions were. I want to know what the lines of delineation were for responsibility. And honestly, I want to know what could have been put in place to prevent this, because they have to be out there today and implement procedures that failed on Saturday. They got to improve. They've got to get better. It's a zero fail mission. And now we've seen that it can fail, and that's not acceptable. I want to know what could have been done to prevent it.
You know, something that has really fueled a lot of people's furor is Cheadle's kind of, let's say, getting it wrong. Most people are saying lying, but getting it wrong about the angle of the roof and how that's why they couldn't have somebody on it. And then they all went up there and walked on it. What was the significance of that to you? That
incredibly undermined the confidence of the Secret Service agents and officers and technicians, and it undermined the confidence of the local police. There are a million reasons why you don't stand on a roof down the line of fire from your Secret Service counter sniper, and the slope is not one. Secret Service counter snipers, they want clean surfaces. They don't want distractions. They have 1,000 lines of sight. If you have a body up there, there's a chance of blue on blue. You also don't counter snipe from a position off the side because it has no view of the line of sight towards the protectee. You put yourself in a position of overwatch or a position of reaction for a local tactical team. Slope has nothing to do with it.
Do you think information is being kept from people?
I don't believe so. I think information is coming out slower than they would like. The American people are scared, and rightly so. They've seen one of the institutions that they have the most respect in fail spectacularly live on the news. I think that things will come out in time. In Kennedy, it took 10 months. It's going to take time to get every answer.
Yeah, but that's why they need it sooner than that, because the longer it goes, the more the crazy goes. Mr. Eklof, thank you very much. As always, speak to you again soon. We'll be right back.